Hey, what's up everybody? This is Ryan with Escotech, and I'm back with another upgrade video. If you followed my channel in the past, you've probably seen the Dell Optiplex upgrades that I've done. This time I'm going to do Dell XPS. I've always kind of wanted to do one and just to see how friendly they are to an upgrade. They're typically designed with bigger power supplies and have a little more room for upgrades, so I just kind of wanted to see how it would go. I'm going to start by saying with the parts I've chosen, there's no way that I would recommend anybody ever actually do this build, since it's basically the equivalent of the 12-second wood panel Dodge minivan. Needless to say, the parts that I've chosen for this build are way overkill. Another disclaimer is that I've got a small computer business on the side, so my spare parts bin doesn't look like most people's spare parts bin. So finally getting onto the computer, we have what looks like a standard Dell XPS 8900. But opening up the side panel, you can see that there is a RTX 3070, a 850 watt power supply, and an all-in-one cooler that kind of give the game away. I will go into more details in just a minute. This project all started with a computer that I bought to flip. I got a good deal on it, but it ended up having couple bent pins on the CPU socket. The computer actually functioned fine and the processor was okay. It just wouldn't use dual channel RAM, so that was kind of why I opened it up and took a look, and that's what I found. But then as I looked around the computer a little bit more, I noticed that Dell uses a lot more standard connectors on this than they do the Optiplex lineup. You got a standard ATX power supply connector. The USB 3.0 is standard other than a little tiny clip on it. The front panel USB, front panel audio, all of this is pretty standard and would be pretty friendly to a motherboard swap. Even the rear I/O shield is not attached to the case and can just pop out just like any standard rear I/O shield would. So once again, I don't necessarily recommend the parts in this build. It was just kind of a fun project I did. You can sure do a better Dell XPS upgrade and make it pretty economical and gather some more mid-range parts that might make a little more sense, but for this build, this is what I went with. Start with the Asus Prime B460M motherboard. It's actually the only part that I had to buy. All the rest I kind of had laying around, starting with the Core i7-10700. Probably not the ideal processor, but it's still very good. I have two 16 gigabyte sticks of Corsair Vengeance LPX at 3200 megahertz. And then for the CPU cooler, I kind of have this unique all-in-one from Asetek. It's a 90mm all-in-one, comes with a Noctua low-profile fan, and it's a pretty good CPU cooler. We'll see how it does with the 10700. For the power supply, I had this Corsair AX850 fully modular power supply, a little bit older, but still runs great. And finally for the SSD, I'm going to use an SN850 Western Digital black drive. This is a PCIe Gen 4 drive, which won't run at PCIe Gen 4 speeds unless we upgrade the CPU to an 11th Gen Intel CPU. Alright, with the disassembly done, it's always a good idea to bench test your system. And I have everything hooked up, turned on the power supply, did fire up the PC, but I did use a screwdriver to jump it right before that, so I'm not too concerned about that. Just want to verify that all of my parts post before I put them all in the case. And I've just got it hooked up to a TV here, but I do have a successful post, so I will go ahead and work on installing everything. I'm going to stop in here and say that I need to cut off the tab on the USB 3.0 on the Dell connector, and I also bought a pack of power buttons and LED lights off Amazon to replace in the system. So I'm going to go back for a second and just show the power LED and power buttons that I bought. They swapped directly into the case on the XPS, the actual housing itself. They just slid right in, and you're just able to plug them into the motherboard like a normal set of headers. I also added a 140mm fan. The case obviously isn't great for airflow, so I put this fan up at the front just to help it get some fresh air to the GPU. And with some cable management done, the system actually looks pretty clean. Makes a great sleeper PC if you're into that sort of thing. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend doing this build exactly as I did, but there are some other options that would make more sense. And finally, this is going to be a quick conclusion of the video, but I am going to run a couple benchmarks and show the results. I did log in and to the BIOS and take the limits off the turbo boost on the PC, so this CPU is running full bore all the time. Not necessarily a fair fight with that Asetek 90mm cooler, but in Cinebench R20 you can see I got 4,684 points. The CPU did hit 90 degrees Celsius, which is not crazy for that CPU, but still pretty high. And then in TimeSpy, we got a 12,814 overall score. The CPU did get a little bit hotter. It touched 96 degrees this time on one core. And if I was going to use the system long term, I would definitely make some adjustments to the turbo boost settings. The CPU using 190 watts is just not something that Asetek 90mm all-in-one can keep up with. That's going to do it for this video. If anybody's got any suggestions or ideas that could make this better, or if something else they want to see, please let me know in the comments. And thanks for watching.